What's up everybody? So in this video I want to talk about there being two Venoms in the next Spider-Man game. Marvel's Spider-Man 2 is going to be one of the biggest games to ever come out. The trailer confirms both Miles and Peter will be in the game, but will also feature the iconic Spider-Man villain Venom. Venom, yes, is of course Spider-Man's villain, but sometimes they're even allies. There are many versions of Venom within the comics, from Agent Venom to the Venom we know, and there are so many different versions of the character. Now I believe there will be two versions of Venom in the next game, the first one being of course Harry Osborn. Harry is suffering from a disease that slowly killed his mother, and Norman refuses to let that happen, of course. So Harry gets treatment with his father, and we see at the end of the first Spider-Man game that Harry is in this tube surrounded by black goo. And of course the black goo is the symbiote. Of course the symbiote makes Venom. Most likely in a last-ditch effort to slow the progression of Harry's disease, he managed to get the symbiote and bind it to Harry, which of course is a terrible thing to do since the symbiote takes the worst traits about yourself and makes it who you are and amplify it, until it controls you and your will. 1 year after the events of Spider-Man PS4, Miles Morales' story takes place, and at the end of that story, Norman frees Harry from the tube. Since it was a year difference between Spider-Man and Miles Morales, that means that Harry spent well over a year with the symbiote attached to his body, so I'm pretty sure this confirms he will be Venom. But what if I told you that there is another character that's being hinted at being Venom? If you played Spider-Man PS4, you'll notice that there are collectibles all around that show a bit of Peter's past. If you look at one of the collectibles, it's a card that he got. The description says that this is when he left the Daily Bugle. If you read off the names of the people who signed Peter's goodbye card, one of the people who signed it was Eddie Brock himself. Of course, Eddie Brock is most famous for being Venom. He becomes Venom a lot throughout Marvel's history. From comics, movies, and games, it's always Eddie Brock who becomes a perfect bonding host for the symbiote. Now in this universe, it seems Peter and Eddie are friends as he signs his goodbye card, one of the few people who did. Over the years, we have seen Peter and Eddie change relationships throughout many games. For example, in Ultimate Spider-Man on the PlayStation 2 and like the GameCube, they used to be high school friends until their father's research tore them apart and Eddie was infected with the symbiote. In some of the movies, Peter and Eddie are rivals. In some games and comics, they're friends. Like, it goes back and forth between Eddie, but the constant between Eddie and Peter is that Peter becomes Spider-Man and Eddie becomes Venom. It's who these characters are at heart. Now this makes perfect sense for the story as well. Since there are going to be two Spider-Men in the game, it makes sense that there's two Venoms. Perhaps when Harry actually gets out of the tube, he's not grateful for his father. He hates his father for what he did to him, trapping him, taking almost years away from his life. So perhaps he goes on a rampage throughout the city, and it's up to Spider-Man to stop this alien symbiote. However, during the struggle, maybe a piece of the symbiote leaves Venom, and it hops on somebody from Peter's past, Eddie Brock. This kind of goes in line with who Spider-Man is at a character, at least at his core. Spider-Man creates problems that he kind of makes, and then he fixes them, and he saves the city and the people. For example, in the first Marvel Spider-Man game, Doc Ock, Peter, unfortunately being late all the time, was somewhat responsible for Doc Ock's creation. If he was there to fix it, he wouldn't, have made Doc Ock change, and he suffers with this guilt throughout the game, and he does blame himself, and he misses the old Otto. Having Peter accidentally causing another Venom to appear would be absolutely tragic for the character. Imagine his best friend, Harry Osborn, one of his oldest friends and employees, Eddie Brock, both coming at him, not knowing that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. Perhaps if they know, they wouldn't have a reason to fight Spider-Man. Maybe Spider-Man reveals himself to these two, who knows? This would be an excellent callback if he does reveal himself to Miles Morales' story, how he revealed himself to Finn in the middle of a conflict. However, later on their relationship would dissolve because Finn would be pretty upset that Miles never told her that he was Spider-Man. Perhaps if he did, none of the issues that would have happened in Miles Morales' story would have happened. Things could have been different if Miles had just told her. If Peter decides to reveal himself, this will be an excellent callback to that story. But again, Peter is pretty adamant on not revealing his secret identity. He told Miles this many times throughout Marvel's Spider-Man the game. He told him never to reveal yourself, and Miles even echoes this at some point while thinking if he should reveal himself to Finn. So I think this will be an excellent way to bring their stories together. In my honest opinion, I love the idea of two Spider-Men that we've played as already going up against two different versions of Venom. Perhaps each Venom has their own objective and what they want to do with this newly gained power. But perhaps the story can go even deeper. Because the symbiotes are going to be in the game, there's a chance we could see Carnage. There's a chance we could see Carnage's version of Miles Morales. Imagine Carnage with Miles's Venom strike power. That would be pretty damn insane. This opens up a whole new world when it comes to symbiotes, because symbiotes are extremely important figures in the Marvel universe. They're actually aliens and they take over dimensions. It's a long story in the comics, but the possibilities are endless because Eddie Brock is in fact in Marvel's Spider-Man's universe, and I think that's absolutely crazy. But what do you all think about two Venoms appearing in the next Spider-Man game? Does that make you excited? Do you not like the idea? Let me know in the comment section down below. I'ma be out of here. Thank you guys and girls for listening. Deuces.